Once again, and tonight to talk about target costing. Target costing. So, in simple term, when we talk about target costing involves setting a target cost by subtracting a desired profit margin from a competitive market price. Now, what target cost does is for you to achieve a reasonable level of profit as an organization, you must see how you employ certain marketing engineering techniques to see how you can penetrate the market. Because in that market, you can have quite a number of competitors in the market. And now, yes, sorry, as I was saying, that target costing entails setting a cost target that will enable an organization to achieve certain level of profits in an organization. And for you to set such targets, there are certain marketing engineering that have to take place in an organization. Yes. And the engineering I'm talking about involves various arms of an organizations, the procurement unit, the those are the production departments. They have to do everything possible to see that the costs for a particular product is relatively minimized in order to achieve a pre-planned cost and profit. So this target costing is a customer focused approach to see how an organization can harness customers, can bring customers, can win the heart of customers by relatively reducing their price in comparison with competitors. So it is a customers focused management tool that is used to determine the market price for a new product, in which market research is adopted as a basis for measuring performance needs and setting a target selling price. Because for you to come up with this target cost and achieve target profit, you must do various research and see what your competitors are charging and see how they operate in their organization for you to be able to achieve certain reasonable points of profit. So this target costing is an important, there's an important reason for calculating the cost of the product or service. And that important reason is for us to determine the selling price. So there must be a proportionate margin between your costs and the, the selling price, so that the difference between your selling price and your cost will give you a profit. So the traditionally, a very common approach to determining a selling price has been to take the cost and then add on a profit percentage. So one problem with this approach is that it can clearly result in a price that is unacceptable to customers, and at the same time provides no direct incentive to cut costs. So target costing is a more modern and more market-driven approach to determine a selling price that will win the heart of the customers and bring more patronage in that end. So when we talk about target costing more so, that target costing involves setting a target cost by subtracting a desired profit margin, from a competitive market price. So it is a customer-focused management tool that is used to determine the market price for a new product, most likely, in which market research is adopted as a basis for measuring performance needs and setting target selling price. So this target costing is adopted by organizations that want to introduce a new product in the market, or there is an existing product, but they want to penetrate an existing market further. Yes. So they can adopt this approach. So there are various steps in determining target costing. There are various steps we can use to determine target costing. And one of the steps is, let me see if I have it here. Yes, steps involved in target costing include, but aside what I have there, one of the steps is you need to determine the target price which customers will be prepared to pay for the product. Yes, from the slide I said, from research of the market, determine a selling price at which the company expects to achieve the desired market share. That is the target selling price. So you have to do quite a number of research and ask from customers how the price they are buying this particular product, and you do research even to the sellers, likewise. How much profit do you make as you sell this? So to be able to break into the market and have a large project. So once you determine the appropriate price that you take for the customer, you need to determine the profit required. What is your expectation in terms of profits? What profit margin do you expect to achieve? Do you want to achieve? Yes, as it relates to the products you want to introduce into the market. Now, you need to determine the profits. That is, a required profit margin or a required return on investment must be determined. And once you do this, how do you do this? You deduct a target profit margin from the target price. Yes, a profit margin needs to be deducted from the target price. We'll get to see that very soon using a simple example. Now, also, once you do this, you need to estimate the actual cost of the product. That is, from the slide I put, that you need to calculate the maximum cost per unit in order to achieve the required profit. So what will be your cost and what will be your profit margin? It means 40% of my cost in terms of markup or margin can be added to the cost for me to achieve a particular profit. So your profit margin plus your cost will determine your selling price. will determine your selling price. So having done that, you compare the estimated actual cost. Take note now. You compare the estimated actual cost with the target cost. What is the actual cost? What is the target cost? Now, if your actual cost is relatively higher than the target cost, it means there needs to be some level of adjustment for you to adjust to the target cost. And how do you adjust? You look at the material you are using. Are you spending more on that material? If you are spending more on that material, how can you minimize the cost of that material? Are you spending more on labor? How can you minimize the cost of labor in relation to the particular product at hand so that you can actually adjust to meet up with your target cost, because it is the cost you incur that will, in the long run, determine your profit on a particular product. And if the cost of a product is too high, the profit you earn might be very low. So you try to see how you minimize cost so that you'll be able to meet up with a certain level of profit that you desire to achieve. So the point is this: if estimated actual costs exceed the target cost, in summary, if estimated actual costs exceed the target cost, investigate ways of driving down the actual cost to the target cost. So this is a summary of this point 4, that compare the estimated actual cost with the target cost. And if the actual cost is higher than the target cost, then look for ways of reducing costs. So if no way can be found of meeting the target cost, then the product should not be produced. So this is the rule. This is the rule. This is the rule. So target costing is a customer-oriented technique that is widely used by most companies in the developed world, yes, to see how they can actually satisfy their customer in the best way available. The best way available. So the major feature of target costing is that a team approach needs to be adopted. It's not what just a particular arm in an organization will achieve. So a team approach must be adopted to achieve target cost. So the team members include the designers, the engineers, the purchasing units, the manufacturing units, the marketing units, the management accounting personnel, all the products in order to meet up with the target profits and costs. So because every one of them, their input is a function of the overall cost of a product. So for an organization that has set a target in terms of cost to produce the product based on their research, they must see how that target is being achieved in order to be able to achieve. When put together is to see how the target cost specified for the product at the prescribed level of functionality and quality can be achieved. Yes, even while you are trying to reduce cost, you must still try to see how you achieve the best in minimizing cost. Not just trying to minimize cost and giving your consumers, the end users of your product, a bad product that is not palatable. Yeah, so the major advantage of adopting target costing is that it is deployed during product design and planning stage. That is why I said, if I have time now, this topic is in line with what? Life cycle costing. Yes, life cycle costing. Yes, that too is not a very lengthy one, very simple one. So it's target costing is adopted when the product is still at the idea stage and it is being designed and it is being developed. So all these concepts will have to be put in place to see how we minimize costs and how we can maximize profit. and how we can maximize profit. So without much ado, I know most people don't like talk as much. You just want to see calculations, but the discussion is also important so that when you are asked some theoretical questions, you can use some of these ideas to tackle such questions. So for example, let's look at this example. This is an example that's what? That Packard PLC are considering whether or not to launch a new product. The sales department have determined that a realistic selling price will be $20 per unit. Packard have a requirement that all products generate gross profit of 40% of selling price. Calculate the target cost. Calculate the target cost. Now, looking at this question, just in 1 minute, read it again, see what it entails. In 1 minute, look at the question again, and we'll interpret together. So looking at this question, that Packard PLC are considering whether or not to launch a new product. The sales department have determined that a realistic selling price will be what? Would be with $20 per unit. And Packard have a requirement that all products generate a gross profit of what? Of 40%. Of 40%. Yes, of 40% of selling price. Calculate the target cost. Now, if the selling price is $20, 40% of the selling price will be what? 40% of the selling price will be what?
Will be 8.
28. Okay, so 40% of the selling price will be. So 40% of the selling price will be what? 8. Fine. Now, what make up the selling price? What make up a selling price?
The cost plus margin.
Very good. The cost plus margin. Make up the selling price. So if you are expected to generate a gross profit of the selling price is what? Is $8. $8, and that is your profit margin. So the difference between the profit margin of $8 and $20 will be what? Will be what?
12 naira.
Will be your total cost. Yes, will be 12 naira. So this is the solution. Solution. The selling price. The selling price is what? Selling price is $20 per unit, and the target return from the question is what? The target return is what? Is 40%. 40% of selling price. 40% of selling price. Now, if from the question, target return is what? Target return will be what? Will be equal to what? $20 multiplied by what? By 40%. And that will give us what? That will give you $8.
$8.
So if the selling price is equal to what? The selling price is equal to $20, and your target return, that is your profit now, is $8. Is $8. What will be your cost?
$12.
Your total cost will
20
be
my
$12. Will be $12. Your total cost will be $12. The total cost will be $12. So based on the question that calculates the target cost. So the target cost will be what? $12. Let's take it further. Somebody should read this, please. Yes, somebody should read, please.
XYZ Limited has designed a new product. It currently estimates that in the current market, the product could be sold for 17 naira per unit. A gross profit margin of at least 30% on the selling price would be required to cover administration and marketing overheads and to make an acceptable level of profit. A cost estimation study has produced the following estimate of production costs for the new products. Direct material, M1, 9 naira. Direct material 2, each unit of the product will require 3 meters of material 2, but there will be a loss in production of 10% of the material used. Material M2 costs 1 naira 80 kobo per meter. Direct labor. Each unit of the product will require 0.50 hours of direct labor time. However, it is expected that there will be unavoidable idle time equal to 5% of the total time paid for. Labor is paid 19 naira per hour. Production overheads. It is expected that production overheads will be absorbed into product cost at the rate of 16 naira per direct labor hour. For each active hour worked, overheads are not absorbed in the cost of the idle time. Required: A, calculate the expected cost of the product. B, target cost. C, the size of the cost gap.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. So looking at this question, we are required to calculate the expected cost of the product, the target cost, and also the size of the cost gap. The size of the cost gap. When we talk about the cost gap, we're talking about the difference between your actual and your target. How do you close to minimize your costs? If your actual costs to a large extent is higher than your target cost, you see how you can minimize the cost to be same or lower than the target cost. So now, looking at this question, that XYZ Limited has designed a new product and it currently estimates that in the current market, the product could be sold for 70 naira per unit. Take note of that. It means the current price will be what? 70 naira. I think that is the actual now. That is the actual price. Will be what? Will be 70 naira. And and the product could be sold for 70 naira per unit. So a gross profit margin of at least 30%, 30% on the selling price will be required. Will be required. Okay, will be required, and to cover administration and marketing overheads and to make an acceptable level of profit. So a cost estimation study has produced the following estimate of production costs for the new product. So this is an estimate now. Now the estimate, what will you do? Every cost estimate you add the various cost estimates for you to determine what the expected cost per unit. And when you determine your expected cost per unit, you compare with what? With your target cost. With your target cost. So the target cost now, how can we treat this? So it will be in two ways. We'll have our expected cost per unit and our target cost per unit. Then we compare the two costs and see which is higher. And if the actual is higher than the target, what can we do? And what will be the difference? So looking at this question now, the expected cost per unit will be what for these new products that we want to produce. So we have its solution. So we have expected cost per unit. Expected cost per unit. Now, what are those materials we need to produce these new products? The materials we need direct material M1, right? Hope we all have the question. And screenshots, please. So we need the expected cost. One, we need direct material. Direct material. And the costs of direct material, we have two forms. M1 now. M1, the cost of it is what?
9 naira.
9 naira. Cost is 9 naira. Now, which other form of material do we have? Direct material M2. And each unit of the product will require 3 meters of material M2, but there will be loss in production of 10% of the material used. Of 10% of the material used. So material M2 costs what? 1 naira 80 kobo per meter. Now, when you're solving question and you see this phrase, loss in production, when you're solving question on variance 2, you likely see issues of loss in material, loss in production. Now, when you have loss in material or loss in production, how do we treat these form of scenarios? Well, how do we treat this form of scenarios? The point is, when materials are used in production or labor are used, there will always be idle time. When materials are used, there will always be wastage. So where materials are used in production, sometimes not all of what you buy ends up in the final product. So there may be waste, scrap, or loss. So regarding this statement here, but there will be a loss in production of 10% of the material used. It means if you have 100%, how many percent will you make use of? If
90%.
90%. So in relation to the cost, how much are you paying for one meter?
1 naira 80 kobo per meter.
Yes, 1 naira for that loss in a way? How do you adjust for that loss? How do you adjust for that loss? How do
So
you
you'll be
adjust?
using 90% of the 1 naira 80 kobo to get the actual cost.
Okay. Okay, 90% of the 1 naira 80 kobo to get the actual cost. Okay, 90%. Yes. Now, when it is a loss, that 90%, there will be an inverse. Instead of you having 90 over 100, it will be the reverse now. It will be what? 100. 100 over 90 multiplied by 1.80 for you to get the actual, because that is not the whole of, you are not enjoying the benefit of 1.8 to the fullness now. So whenever we have a loss, if you solve questions in the Pathfinder, especially on variance, you will see this playing out. Whenever you have a loss in production and there is a money value attached to it, now in relation to that money, what is the value for money in relation to the material? So it is not, if you are saying 90% of 180, it means that 90% of 180 is what you're actually paying for. But now we're trying to see the inverse proportion of 100 over 90 in relation to 1.80. So when you have lost and you're trying to determine the value, it will be the reverse. That is the percentage of wastage, the reverse of it, 100 over 90 multiplied by 1.80. Now we can have another case in this question, I think in labor, that each unit of the product will require 0.50 hours of direct labor time. However, it is expected that there will be unavoidable idle time equal to what? 5%. This 5%, it shows you are not working at that point. There's 5% idle time. Now, 5% from 100, you have what? 5% from 100, you have what? 95. Now, the cost, the direct labor cost for how many hours? 0.5 hours will now be what? Now, labor is paid 19 naira per hour, but there is a loss in labor hour to the tune of what? 5%. So for you to treat this now, it will be what? It will be what?
Okay, 100 divided by 90 times 19 naira.
Yes, 100 divided by 95 now.
95, sorry.
Yes, 95 by 19 naira. By 19 naira. For you to get the cost per unit, because you are actually losing 5% of the overall time. Yes. So what will be the expected cost per unit? Yes, Madam Victoria.
Okay, so I noticed that using that 100 over 90 or 100 over 95 is increasing the cost. Like that 100 over 90 multiplied by 1.8, it will give us 2.
Yes.
But it's increasing it.
Yes, it's increasing
So I
it.
thought it was supposed to reduce the cost.
No, it will not. It will not reduce the cost. It will increase the cost. That is for direct what is it called now?
Material.
Direct material. Try that for direct labor now. Let's see.
Okay. That'll be 100 over 95 multiplied by 19. It increased to 20.
Okay, it increased to
20.
okay. Somebody else should confirm that.
Yes, 20.
Okay, fine. So it increased to 20. So, okay, yes. So the that each unit of the product requires 0.5 hours of direct labor time. However, it is expected that there will be unavoidable idle time of 5%, yes, of the total time paid for. And labor is paid at what? 19 naira per hour. Yes. It will increase to 6 because as you do this, you are paying for wastage likewise. Yes, you are paying for wastage, you are paying for idle time. So it is when you now come to variance, you now try to see the effect of this loss on your overall cost. So people are not working, but you are paying them. Yes. So the effect of it, that is why we have it as 100 over 90 in relation to 1.8. So in the actual sense, you are paying for what you are not getting value for. You are paying for what you are not getting benefit for. So overall, the effect of that cost on the organization will actually make that value to increase. And that is why you see it as 6 and 20. So for issue of idle time, for issue of wastage of material, loss of material, there will always be an inflation. So this concept ensures that you inflate the usable requirement to cover the loss.
Sorry, Mr. Can we say we are adding back the material that was lost or the idle
Yes,
time? We're adding it back to the cost.
yes, yes. From this last statement I made now, that this concept ensures that what you inflate the usable requirement to cover for the loss. So exactly what you said. So we are adding it back, yes, to cover for the loss. So that is the concept of having 100 over 90, 100 over 95. Yes, because when you waste materials, it means you still need more to cover up for that wastage. So let's put this in a clear form. For direct material M1, the cost is what? 9 naira. For direct material M2, it will be what? M2 will be what?
2
It will
naira.
be okay. Considering the various adjustments that we have to make, that each unit of the product will
6
require 3
naira.
meters. So it will be in this form. That is, each unit requires how many meters? 3 meters, right?
Yes, sir.
3 meters. Now, 1 meter costs how much? One meter costs how much?
1.8.
1 naira, 8 cover.
Now, the loss, making up for the loss, would be what?
100
100
over
divided
90.
by 95.
When you do that,
90.
90, right? Yes.
90. 95 is for labor.
So when you do that, you have what?
6.
Yes, 6.
You have 6. For labor, Direct labor. This would be what? Each unit of the product will require 0.5 hours of direct labor. So it's going to be 0.5
hours
hours multiplied by what?
19.
19 there.
Multiplied by what?
100 over 95.
So we have it as what?
10.
10.
We have it as 10. That was why I was asking a question the other time. Yes. We have it as 10. So for production, it's going to be what? Production overhead. It is expected that production overhead will be what? Absorbed. Will be what? Absorbed into product costs at the rate of what? 60 naira. At the rate of 60 naira per direct labor hour. The direct labor hour is what?
19 naira.
No, hours, not rates.
Okay, 0.5 hours.
Fine. So take note of this statement. Sometimes students usually get confused. Anytime they see production overhead will be absorbed, they begin to get scared. What is the interpretation of this? It is expected that production overhead will be absorbed into product cost. Product cost at the rate of 60 naira per direct labor hour. Direct labor hour is what?
0.5.
So for each active hour worked, overhead are not absorbed into the cost of idle time. Now, we are not taking the idle time into consideration in this case now. So perfectly, you're expected to work based on what? 0.5 hours to produce a unit of this new product. So who can tell us what to do at this point? From this statement that it is expected that production overhead will be absorbed into product cost at the rate of 60 naira per direct labor hour. What will be the interpretation?
Let me try. I think you need to multiply the 16 naira by 0.5
Okay, and
hours.
that, yes. So you just multiply the 60 naira. So it will be what?
30.
30.
So production .5 hours in relation to what? To 16 naira. So we have it as what? As 30. Now, based on the question that a cost estimation has produced the following estimate of production cost for the new product. Now, based on the estimate, the expected full cost per unit is what? These are the estimates, right? These are the estimates. So when you add everything, it will give you what?
Expected full.
The expected full cost or expected
54.
55.
Yes. 55, sorry.
So we have it as 55. Now, what is your target? What is your target? Looking at the question. Let's go back to the question that XYZ Limited has designed a new product. It's currently estimated that in the current market, the product could be sold for. Your target is what?
17 naira.
Your target selling price is what?
17 naira.
Fine, 17 naira. Now, what is your target profit margin?
30%.
30%. So read the statement again, that a gross profit margin of at least 30% on the selling price will be required. And that requirement is to cover the cost of administration, marketing overhead, and to make an acceptable level of profit. So now, based on the question, if this is the expected cost per unit, based on your own plan, your target, what is your target selling price?
17 naira.
17 naira.
Your target selling price, it's 17 naira. Now, on this selling price, there is an element of what in it?
Profit, gross profit.
An element of profit. So the profit will be what? That is the question
21
says
naira.
so minimum gross profit margin. Minimum gross
30%.
profit margin. And the value is what? 30%.
30%.
30% of 70. And this will give us what?
21.
Will give us 21. So your selling price minus your profit will give you what?
49.
Your target cost.
Fine. So it will give you your target cost. Your target cost. Now, the question is this. To give us our target cost, and which is 49. Now, the difference between your target cost
6.
and your expected full cost would be what? In a way, for clear understanding, I know somebody is confused saying expected, target. In a way, it's just based on the way the question is coined. Yes, the question can be very confusing because somebody might be finding difficult to differentiate between expected and target. But for understanding purpose, please, this expected, let's term it as actual. Yes, actual, for understanding purpose, because from the readings of the question, you can easily detect that they've already have an expectation, which is a target here. This is the target. Now, this is confusing, yes, because they are still using the word estimation instead of saying in reality, in the actual sense. So, but for understanding purpose, if this is your actual and if this is your target cost, what do you think you can do? Or what is the difference between your target and your actual?
Is it in value or
In value,
6?
6. So that difference is called what? Cost
The
gap.
gap.
It's called cost gap. That difference is called cost gap. It's called cost gap, which is equal to what? 55 minus what? 49.
49.
And you have what? 6.
6.
So as a performance manager, what will be your advice if your actual cost is higher than your target cost? What will be your advice?
Okay, so you look at ways to reduce the estimated or the actual costs, and if they are not ways or reasons to reduce the cost, you don't produce the product.
Yes. So as a performance manager, you look at how you can reduce the actual to suit your target. To suit what? Your target. Now, this is your plan. This is what you plan to achieve, your target. But based on market reality, these are the costs. Actual. So the point is, how can you reduce your actual to suit your target. You come back, you look at your material. Are you not bargaining well? Why are you wasting too much material? Yes, you try to caution those handling your materials. Everybody must work as a team to see how we reduce the cost of material and see how we manage our materials in order to achieve the best. So you see how you close the gap between your actual and what and your targets, the target you plan to achieve. So based on the question, that calculate the expected cost of the product, and the expected cost of the product is what? It's 55, and your target cost is what? Is 49. So the question says the size of the cost. Okay, the size of the cost gap is it's 6. It's 6. So closing the gap, the target cost most times are rarely achievable immediately, and especially when you are just introducing a new product, and you must always find a way to reduce the cost and close the gap. So target costing should involve a multidisciplinary approach. Just as we said, everybody must put their hand on deck to see how the cost is reduced. So how do they do this? By trying to see how they reduce the cost of producing this particular product. So the management accountant should be able to design and see how they can adopt a market engineering approach to reduce the cost and see how best they can sell their products and see how best they can obtain quality raw materials even at a cheaper rate. And more so, ideas for reducing cost can come from the manufacturing unit, from the engineering, from the purchasing unit, and see how best they can meet up with their target. So this is very important as it regards regarding these concepts. So okay, let's see. I think there's another question. Yes, this is a question. Yes, this is also a question that okay, let's take this one. Everybody should be able to solve this. Yes, that PZ Manufacturing PLC employed you as a management accountant to determine the cost of a product whose price will be set at 1,000 naira. The company requires a minimum profit of 10%. 10%. Madam Lindami, can you help us out now? Is she there? She's
Hello,
not there.
sir.
Looking at this question, what can you tell us? I'm not hearing your voice over time. So what can you tell us about this?
Oh, okay. It's my network. Sometimes I don't hear you. So that was why I kept quiet.
Okay. So what can you
Okay, let
tell
me
us
check.
about it?
Okay.
So every other person you can solve, and let's get your idea about this. Yes, who is there?
Yes,
900.
sir. I guess the question is making us understand that the company requires a minimum profit margin of 10%. So I guess we're adding up 10% of 1,000 to the target price that has been put on the product. If
Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Financial.
So the target selling price. Okay, yes, you can try.
Okay, so PZ has the target a selling price for of 1,000 naira, and the company has a minimum profit margin of 10%. So we are going to remove the 10% profit margin from this 1,000, which is 100, to get the target price, which is 900.
Okay. Yes. And that is it. So the target selling price is 1,000, and the profit margin expected is what? It's 10%. 10%. And the 10% is on the selling price. So 10% of 1,000 will give us what? Will give us 100. So we established that selling price minus what? Profit will give you what? The cost. The cost. So the target cost will be 1,000 less 100, and you're going to have what? You're going to have 900. So the target cost of the product is determined at what? At 900. At 900. So that is the answer to that. That is all right, Mr. Williams.
My question is this. I
Yes.
understood what you said though, but ideally, I was thinking maybe because in profit margin of 10%, you say 1.1 times 1,000 give you 1,100. Then,
No, sir.
okay.
10% of 1,000 is 100.
No, as in 10% is 100. If you now add it to the 1,000 to give you 1,1. Because the question here, target, sorry. I was just messing up the whole thing.
All right. So let's show it so that everybody will be on the same page. Solution. It's target selling price. Target selling price. We have it as what? As 1,000. And the profit margin. So I'm going to present an assignment now. You go and imagine how you're going to solve it. Then one thing with this topic is that theory issues, they can ask you theoretical questions, yes, related to this topic and in relation to life cycle costing. As a matter of fact, in one of the recent exams, yes, there's a question on life cycle costing. Yes, trying to ask you questions on the various stages of a product. Yes, that is from the initial stage, development stage, and the rest of it. I'm going to read out some theory questions to your hearing so that you understand what it entails. So from this now, profit margin is 10%. The target cost will be 100 minus the profit margin you have, 900. So the target cost of the product is determined at 900 naira. 900 naira. But this question, though, is a lengthy one. Maybe what I'll do, I'll just share it on the platform. So when we talk about life cycle, who can give us a brief about life cycle costing? Talking about life cycle. I'll share the assignment on the platform. All right.
Okay, I can't, I'm trying to remember. I think it has the introductory stage, it has the growth stage, it has its maturity stage and declining stage for product life cycle. So I think the introductory stage is when you introduce the product or when the product is newly produced and introduced into the market. And the growth stage is when it's in its boom. And there are a lot of patronage and making much profit. The maturity stage is where the sales or the demand for the product become static. It's not going up, it's not going down. And then the decline state is when the demand for the product starts to reduce. It's not as much as when it was in the growth stage or the maturity stage. I think that is what I can remember.
Yes, yes. So life cycle costing, looking at the developmental stages, every stage of of a product. Yes. Now, every product will always have an introductory aspect, that is a point where someone conceived the idea and try to see how they come up with a design and do a model of how the product will will be. There should be a simulation, yes, of how that product will be in a real life scenario. So you conceive an idea and you give birth to that idea, and the idea begins to grow. And at every stage, something happens. Yes. So when we talk about life cycle costing, when we talk about life cycle costing, as you can see, I said life cycle costing estimates and accumulates cost of a product over time, over its life cycle, in order to determine whether profit earned during its manufacturing phase will be sustained and cover the cost incurred during the pre and post manufacturing stage. Before you produce a product, there is what we call the research and development costs. Those doing FR and those that will do CR. Yes, there are standards in accounting that deals with this. Yes. So research and development costs, those costs before the product is actually produced. I think one of the standards says you capitalize and you don't capitalize. Yes. So we have cost of acquiring technical data and the rest. All these issues at their pre-manufacturing stage of a product. So the costs incurred in this process, you have to consider them. Now, when the product is now into full manufacturing stage, now there are costs that we also incur. The marketing costs, trying to tell people that your product is now in existence, creating awareness about your product, the marketing, the production costs, the cost of producing 1 or 2 units of your products, and the training costs, those that you engage in your factory to see how they age your production process. What will be the overall cost to engage these ones, the inventory costs, the disposal costs, and the rest of it. So life cycle costing, I said, can also be referred to as a thorough technology. Yes, thorough technology, which can be further be explained as the maintenance of physical asset cost records over the entire asset lines. So how do you maintain each of these costs? How do you maintain each of these stage of a product's life, of a product life? So life cycle costing in relation to traditional costing techniques is based around annual periods given to a product, or the impression that costs and profitability of a product is just for a particular year. So this can be seen as a system whereby financial accounting year is just based on a year, on a particular 12-month period. So life cycle costing tracks and accumulates costs and revenues attributable to each product over its entire product life cycle. So it does not just consider the costs of a product just for a particular period of time, but cost of a product over the entire product life cycle. So the total profitability of any given product can be determined yes, over its life cycle, over its life cycle. So there are quite a number of factors that need to be managed in order to maximize the product's return over its life cycle. Yes, quite a number of factors, yes, that need to be managed. The design cost of the product, the market cost of the product, and quite a number of things that you can think of. So the point is this: there are stages. There are stages of product life cycle. Stages of product life cycle. We have the development stage. Now, all you're seeing on the screen now is the cost components. Cost components. So the stages of the product life cycle, just as Madam Victoria said, we have the development stage. This stage entails the extensive cost being incurred on research and development, on visibility studies, yes, on sightseeing, and the rest of it. Now, once you pass the development stage, you move to the introduction or the introductory stage. The introductory stage. Now, this stage entails introduction of the product to the market, in which potential customers get awareness of the goods and services about your upcoming products or your existing products. Now, from development stage, the product begins to grow and get awareness. So, development stage leads to what? The growth stage. Now, at this stage, the product starts to gain ground, yes, in the market as demand build up, in which sales revenue and profits tend to also increase. So at the growth stage, you begin to gain more awareness, have large market share, and the rest of it, your profits, your revenue increase, and you begin to think of expansion. It is at this stage that your engine room, those that think for you as an organization, should begin to come up with initiatives of how to take over the market in which you operate. And also we have the maturity stage. This is a climax whereby you achieve the optimum profit, the optimum revenue as an organization. Now, at this maturity stage, if an organization is not strategic in its approach to its products, it begins to lose value. It begins to lose shares in the market and becomes irrelevant in the long run. So when the maturity stage is not well managed, an organization might be pulled out of the market because at this point it has gained much popularity, and if it fails to sustain its awareness, if it fails to sustain its quality in terms of product or service, it can be pulled out of the market by competitors because most people will now be interested in going into such kind of business. So from maturity, we have decline. The business begins to fall at that point. So that is why at maturity stage, you must be very strategic to remain relevant in the market for you not to get to this decline stage. So the stages in the product life cycle, we have the development stage, we have the introductory stage, the growth stage, the maturity stage, and also you have the decline stage, the decline stage. Yes, as you can see the screen. So there is a simple question on this product life cycle, though not here. Not here. Maybe I'll share on the platform likewise. Then we analyze maybe when next to meet. Then when we analyze that question, we'll now talk about make or buy decision. Yes. But I can just create like 1 hour to talk about the question. I'll forward. Let me forward it to the platform on life cycle costing. I've earlier forwarded one of the question on target costing. Look at it and see what you can come up with. Then let me share this one likewise on life cycle costing. You cannot tell. Something simple can just come our way and to not speak well. We don't know how to solve. So beyond the theory, that is mostly associated with these aspects of the syllabus, you can actually take up some questions like that. So I've forwarded a question on life cycle costing. Let me see, is this the whole question? Yes, forwarded a question on life cycle costing. So please do well to go through this question. They are very much important. You need